Welcome, all you brothers and sisters, to another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. I'm Michael James. I'm here in Chicago's 49th Ward, a very blue place, and I'm really glad to be talking with you all today. I've got two wonderful guests. They're both old friends. We're going to have Alice Embree out of Austin, Texas, and then we're going to go all the way to Bangkok, Thailand, and talk to our old pal, Bill Paige, who used to live in Rogers Park, where we are recording this. We are actually recording it on the 28th of August, and I want to share that on this very day in 1955, a Chicago teenager, Emmett Till, was murdered in Mississippi. His death brought nationwide attention to racial violence in the South and was certainly a catalyst for the civil rights movement. We did interview on this show his cousin, who was there when he was taken out of where he was visiting. And somewhere, I think Katie Hogan has that, and we'll try to get it out because it's pretty interesting. A couple of things just on the labor movement. Shawn Fain of the United Auto Workers, when he was at the Democratic Convention, I really like that he uses working class. You'll notice that the Democrats do not say working class. They use middle class. And we do understand that the Democratic Party is moving to the center right now around the flag, around the border, around Israel. We certainly hope that we can win the election and keep the orange-haired guy out of office. But I do want to let everyone know that once Kamala is elected, we will have to push her, and I'm sure she's ready for that. And we hope so. On the sports front, I just want to share that Babe Ruth's number 3 jersey or shirt that he wore when he predicted a home run, that just went for $24 million. And on a close to home note that affects the Chicago Red Stars, our soccer team, the National Women's Soccer League and players have announced that they reached an agreement that will significantly raise the salaries of everybody, more freedom to move, and they are getting rid of the player draft. I saw something on TV recently. In Europe, they don't have a draft system. Here we do. And it's probably something we want to see disappear. One event of note that I think certainly people in the Rogers Park and Chicago area should know about is that Cheryl Corley has written a piece on the Great Migration of the Blues. And our friend Lucy Smith and her band will be playing on Friday, September 6th, 6 to 7:30 in Warren Park, 6800 Northwestern Avenue. Bring your chairs, be outside, enjoy the fall, the early fall then, and you'll really like Lucy's stuff, and you're certainly going to like whatever Cheryl Corley will be sharing. Okay, I'm going to ask our engineer, Hal, just back from a travel to California, to play us a very short little musical bit, and then we will be back with our visit to Austin, Texas, and our first guest, Alice Embree. Okay, all you citizens of the world, it's time for my first interview today, and I'm really happy to be connecting up with an old friend, someone I know from my SDS days. That would be Students for Democratic Society. And like a lot of us who were involved in the 60s, we were moved by the civil rights movement. We got involved in all kinds of things, and most of us are still kicking. And those of us who are still kicking are certainly active in trying to make the world a better place. And Alice Embree is one of those people. I see her online on our kind of a collective e-news that we have. I got a copy of her wonderful book called Voice Lesson when it came out. And I apologize for not interviewing you earlier, Alice, but I really got into your book the last few days, and I'm glad to have you here. So how are you doing out there in Austin, Texas today?
Doing fine in Austin, Texas, hoping that we have a Senate win in Austin, Texas in November.
Let's talk about that first. We'll go to your book, which is kind of a history of the movement and your own activity. And we'll focus on that. But let's talk Texas politics. We were very excited way back when Beto O'Rourke, who we've gotten to know a little bit from our visits to El Paso, when he was running for the Senate, and then he ran for governor. Now he's pushing for a guy named Colin Allred. And he's running for the Senate. Tell us about Colin Allred and what you think his chances are.
I think everybody's chances improved a lot in the last month. So I'm looking forward to him eking out a win against the senator that's the least like senator in the Senate, Ted Cruz, who left our state when we had a big freeze. He left to Cancun and, left us freezing here. And anyway, Colin Allred's from Dallas. He won he flipped a district to get into Congress. He's a former football player. He's a civil rights attorney, and he's just generally a good guy. And a group I work with met with him, I guess a week ago, about Social Security and Medicare. So he had a round table in Austin. And so I had my sign out in the yard, and, I think he's got a good chance. And anybody out there that can.
I hope so. Oh. I do go to El Paso pretty much every year for the last 22 or 3 years, or 24, and to this basketball in the Barrio program. And I've met a lot of people who are politically conscious down there. And everyone has been saying that Texas will eventually become blue, but it seems to be stalled over and over. And Beto had a shot, but Allred, you think, has an opportunity to win this election?
Well, I think that what's happened is a lot of young people have gotten activated. A lot of people have kind of gone, okay, this is a big deal. And so I think that it's that new energy that we've seen in the last month. Beto was like fantastic. There are 254 counties in Texas. It's a big state.
It is.
Lots of land to travel, and Beto did. He went to every county, and he's got a ground game still working here, doing voter registration and get out the vote stuff. So,
What's your sense of the shift of Texas from kind of a red state to maroon or purple and then going blue?
So demographically, we're on that edge there. Harris County, where Houston is, most diverse city, I think, in the United States. It's got a population larger than 26 states. Houston, a lot of you've got the urban rural split. And one thing that we have terrible people in state office. We'll start with the Governor Abbott, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, and Dan Patrick, the Lieutenant Governor. And it's like, oh my God. And then terrible gerrymandering. So it's been a really tough fight, but the governor keeps getting beaten on his big charter thing last session. He's trying to basically, divert money to private charter schools from public education. And rural Texans are like fond of their high schools. And more than fond, it's a big deal. And so he got beaten, I think, 3 times. He's still trying to do it. So nothing is, we all live in that, maybe this time moment, but okay, I don't want to. I think
we'll have hope for the best.
Of course.
And I think, I'm an internal optimist and kind of a meliorist, believe that things get better. I know they don't always, but let's do a little shift, which will focus on your book, which was the co-winner of the Liz Carpenter Award for the best book on the history of Texas women, given out by the Texas Historical Society. And in the book, it's a memoir, and it traverses your getting involved from being a kind of a goody girl to a girl going a little bit wild. And that's probably when I met you back in the early days of SDS. And I think you, like a lot of us, were drawn by civil rights. Give us a little bit of your movement history.
Well, Texas, Jim Crow South, and, with the signs on the buses, colored in the back, and the signs on the drinking fountains and segregated schools and all of that. So when I was a freshman at UT, the UT sports and dorms were still segregated. And So I was drawn into those battle lines first before SDS, and we were in the backyard of Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson's daughter was living in Consolming Dormitory, so we had a demonstration there about less than a month after the assassination of Kennedy, and it of course got national news. President's daughter lives in segregated housing. So, we were kind of pushing that envelope all the time in Lyndon Johnson's backyards. And we got in trouble. I got in trouble, giving a speech against the war. And 6 of us were put on disciplinary probation. It was a big free speech fight. And that's kind of trouble that when I went from the good girl to, it was to the kind of disciplinary probation world of the University of Texas. And SDS had a great chapter, in Austin. It was like rowdy and big and rambunctious. And, I think we were always kind of like, who are these people? When we went, the old guard with kind of more grad students in SDS. And so, we had a really good chapter. We started an undergrad newspaper, which I know you've had Thorn Dryer on, but we started the Rag, lasted 11 years, big underground newspaper. And so that I came out of that, went into the women's movement. I wanted the memoir to kind of, because a lot of that history is written just like the 60s and just by men. So I wanted to kind of do that bridge into that women's liberation period and the way I found my voice. And my book is called Voice Lessons, but it's about finding your voice. And then that continuity of activism, because, people have remained active and we aren't just all sitting around talking about the past. We're still doing things.
That's the truth. Why don't you talk a little bit more about what moved you? We all, as the movements came along and the issues came along, we incorporated them into the movement. From civil rights to the women's movement to the war in Vietnam to, and on and on. But talk a little bit about how the women's movement grabbed you and some of the things that might have led you to that, to being real active and in the forefront of women's liberation in Austin.
I think a lot of women it grew naturally out of the idea of direct action and the ideas that the civil rights movement had taught people. And it was like, it was just a revelation to me to kind of get into a feminist analysis of what was going on. I want to just say this because it's important in the reproductive justice realm, but there were these very gutsy women that were at the Rag, in the Rag office, that was the underground newspaper, that decided, well, what do we need? We need birth control counseling. And then that became very shortly, because they kept getting calls and inquiries, abortion referral. And they did a lot of work in that area between 69, 70, 71, legislative hearings, all kind of things. And so because they knew that it was illegal, they talked a very young attorney, Sarah Whittington, into filing a lawsuit. And that backstory is not very well known, but it's, she was, they had coffee with her, what can we do? And she filed Roe v. Wade along with another attorney. And of course, 3 years later from the time it was filed, the Supreme Court, I think, stunned everybody involved with the Roe v. Wade decision.
I wish it had held.
It's very, very bad in Texas, but there's still all these people doing work. And the work goes on.
Well, I really like the quote in your book. You talked about Ann Richards, who was I think a governor at one time
Yeah,
over
yeah,
there.
governor.
And she basically said, roosters crow, hens deliver.
Hens deliver. I know. I think, well, who was it? I guess Kathy Whitmer, like get stuff done. I mean, it's kind of like she came in, she was in the Ann Richards was just a trailblazer as a governor, and she got a lot of stuff done. And then shortly after that, we began to drift into to a Republican lock on state offices. But we have some great, well, Molly Ivins. We have some great rowdy women to be proud of here.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more too. And Casey Hayden was
Casey Hayden, I know. Well, Casey Hayden was about 3 years ahead of me, and so I did not interact with her on the UT campus. But she was a mover and shaker in integrating movie theaters, and so people I know and got her to talk about. There was a reunion of a group that had done that. They called it stand-ins because they'd stand in line, ask for tickets, get refused, go back. I mean, it was like a sit-in, but block the ticket counter at movie theaters. So it was pretty cool. And People's History in Texas.org has a great little documentary on the stand-ins in Austin.
Another thing that you did was you worked with NACLA, which was the North American Congress on Latin America, as well as I think you were doing that in New York, and also the Rat newspaper, which I think Jeff Shiro was involved in helping to start that after you all had done the RAG in Texas. Talk a little bit about your interest in Latin America and where that might have taken you and what you see happening back then and now.
Well, NACLA was Power Structure Research Group, did a lot of work on foreign policy implications of, money and the CIA in Latin America, but also did the leaflets, the Who Rules Colombia leaflet for the strike at Colombia, and then something on Mexico. And then I was working on mass media ownership. Anyway, so when I got back, after the coup in Chile, I had been to Chile once, and I had been to Cuba on an SDS trip. And I had an interest and also had been to Mexico with our pamphlet after the 1968 Tlatelolco massacre. And so I got very involved with the Austin Committee for Human Rights in Chile. And we lasted a long time, did a lot of work. And that, it probably takes longer than we have to talk about what has happened now. And Boric the president in Chile, he's very progressive, but, they've got the same, fight going on with the right wing there. And, it's interesting to see it all play, Lula in Brazil. And then, it's been a lot of changes, but it's a lot of interest in that part of the world.
I follow it too. I've been to Nicaragua, to Cuba, 3 times, Cuba a couple times. I got to say that we had a former leftist in El Salvador who's kind of moved to the right, and I'm not sure where I'm at on Daniel Ortega these days in Nicaragua. So.
I know it's not always a slam dunk, is it? And it's like,
no, it's not.
My daughter worked with the Committee in Solidarity with the People of El Salvador. So I went down. I was actually there the prior election when the FMLN won the presidency. But every country has wealth inequality now in outrageous forms. And so actually making changes that help people and reduce that inequality, that's a pretty tough tough thing. I mean, you can raise people's hopes and you can only do so much in the legislative realm.
Well, we got a couple minutes left, Alice, and I'd like for you to kind of maybe give a little quick look at you being involved in the movement and what that meant, and any suggestions you might have to younger people who are maybe in school or just out of school trying to figure out what to do that would make them happy and make the world a better place.
Wow. I've been very inspired by the younger activists I've gotten to know in reproductive justice realm, and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You've got to give people time off when they have young children. You've got to understand that people go through a lifetime, but that people also can go through a lifetime of commitment to social justice, and the older generation can be great allies and learn a lot from a younger generation that's really, so much more diverse and, and some of that just comes, in a different form than I experienced it at the UT campus in 1963. So I'm encouraged, and people should never lose hope because that's what they want us to do. It's the cynicism poison. And that's what they want, us to feel frozen and as though we can't do anything. And we can always.
I'm all in right now with feeling some kind of joy out there in the world.
Right.
And hopefully we can translate that into some politics that bring us a new situation. You have a wonderful book. Once again, it's called Voice Lessons. And it was published by the Briscoe Center, where I know you've been pushing for SDS people to put their archives. I'm sitting on a lot of stuff that I have to.
I know. I don't know what we can do to push you. I mean, they do great with photographs. They do.
I got enough stuff to share. I'm gonna do it.
But, I'm gonna tell the director that you do.
Tell him, I want to meet him. I'll even come down there. I go to El Paso every year, but I'd like to go back to Austin. And I want to thank you for coming on, and I want to enlist you as a regular contributor to the Live from the Heartland show, because you do a lot of great work, and there's a lot of things that I'd love to have you share with our listeners and viewers.
Thank you, Michael, for letting me be on in Chicago and live all over the world and all that.
Right on, sister. Power to the people, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Everybody else, stay tuned. We're going to come back after a little musical break with more conversation. We're going to go to Bangkok, Thailand, to talk to a former neighbor, former writer for Playboy, of all things, and a guy who's been living over there and doing a radio show. So we'll be right back. And thank you once again, Alice Embree, Austin, Texas. Welcome back, you listeners and viewers, to the Live from the Heartland show. I'm Michael James here in Chicago, up in the 49th Ward, and my next guest is someone who used to live around the corner in the 49th Ward for many years. He was a regular contributor to the radio show when we did it live from the stage at the Heartland. Then he disappeared to become a small farmer or rancher down there outside of Austin, Texas. And he got tired of that, so he went. Where do you think he went? He went to Thailand, and he's been there.
Where else are you going to go?
Well, what led you to go to Thailand? Good morning, good afternoon. It's late at night where you are. Tell us about what led you to Thailand.
Well, I had a couple of when my life in Austin sort of crumbled. Let's just leave it at that. I had a few different options on the table, and I had met a friend of mine, a guy I knew in Chicago that ran rock and roll clubs and stuff, and he had been living here for a few years, and I ran into him on the street in Skokie one day. He was back visiting, and we got to talking about this country and what it was like and what his experience was like here, and it just intrigued me, stuck in the back of my head. And so when it came time to make a move, I'm like, well, let's get a visa and go over there for, I planned for a year. And I said, let's see how it goes. I could bail at any time if I hate it in a month. If I hate it in 2 months, I can always come home. But here it is 6 years plus later. And it's still a very intriguing country where I don't understand 90% of what is happening around me in media or print or signage or people talking, and that's okay.
That is okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a, in a lot of ways, it's like Texas. When I first got to Texas, I remember somebody saying to me something along the lines of, enjoy what we have, but don't try to change us. And when I got to Thailand, I basically got the same kind of vibe. It's like they've never been colonized. They know what's good about the country. They know what's not so good. And they don't really want you to point out the negative things. Just enjoy what we have and, you know, enjoy the weather, enjoy the great food, enjoy the ocean, whatever you like, it's here.
Well, we're going to talk about a little bit of all of that stuff, including politics, but let's start off with something that you do on a weekday basis. I think you have a show, and I think people can get that anywhere in the world. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, anybody can tune in to Surf Radio. It's a local radio station. It's on here locally at 102.5 FM. It's not a big power radio station. You can only get it in about a 20, 30, 40-mile radius, but it's online at surf.radio. That's a domain, just like .com and .gov and .org. You can just go to surf.radio. It was pretty funny. I was out one night and someone said, I couldn't find your station. They were looking for SERF. I'm like, what are you, from the Middle Ages or something? Come on. So anyway, we're on the beach. We're here on the Gulf of Thailand, and it's surf.radio. And it's basically it's a musical format of top 100 hits from the last 6 decades. I mean, it's just a lot of hit songs from the UK and from Australia and the USA, and some new music mixed in every week when new artists come out with things. So it's a way for me to keep up with music. It's great. I know I can tell you who's got the #1 album in the country right now, and I bet a lot of 70-year-old people could not converse with a younger person about that. And so that keeps me up to date. I pay attention to spectacle like the Olympics, and I talk about that. And we have a lot of special events happening in Hua Hin. For a little town, there's always something going on here. We've got a big elephant parade coming up, which is going to be like the cows in Chicago. About 25 years ago, if you remember that, they're going to have painted elephants around town. We've got a professional women's tennis tournament coming back to our big arena here in a couple of weeks. The top women's players in the world will be here competing, and so that's exciting. So, there's always something to talk about on the radio. It's surf.radio. And my show is on from 4 to 7 Bangkok time, which would be 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Chicago time.
Oh, I can't wait to wake up that early to hear it.
Well, if you're up at 6 having a coffee and want to tune in, I know a lot of early birds.
www.surf.radio, and that's it. And that's it.
That's it. There's a 20
p.m. over there, 4 a.m. here. So you're 12 hours difference, our time.
12 hours difference, except during daylight savings time, and then it's 13 hours.
Yeah. Well, you said the top 100 songs of the last 100 years. You don't pick any really. There's songs from there's songs from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the aughts. It's just there's a lot of artists that I wasn't familiar with, frankly. When I first got here, artists like, Kylie Minogue, she's not that popular in America, but she is hugely popular all over the world. Sophie Ellis-Bextor, she was hugely popular in the UK and Australia 20 years ago. Never made a dent in America, but she's playing she's playing in Chicago, I think, next Tuesday. I think she's at the Vic Theater next Tuesday. We'll have to
so I pay attention to who's on the road, what big festivals are happening, and I connect it all to the artists on our playlist, basically.
And what do you do for news over there? What do you read? Do you read online papers from the States? You got a local paper?
So for news, mostly national news, I will, well, we run the BBC headlines every hour at the top of the hour. So I get a lot of my major news, what's happening in the world from the BBC. Then I read The Guardian, and
Yeah.
I also read the Bangkok Post every day. I get on my bike in the morning, I go get an iced coffee, and I get the Bangkok Post. I pay for it in advance because if I didn't, it would be sold out because there's only 2 newsstands that carry the paper in this whole town, and they only buy about 5 copies of the paper. So I give them 1,000 baht at the beginning of the month, and she saves me a paper every day. So.
Oh, that's good. Well, one of the things that I remember about you is you like to play the guitar, and you did play out when you were here some of the time. And as an older guy with the rock and roll background, you play music over there. So let's hear a little bit about your current music career.
Well, I get to talk about, and I wrote a book, Everything I Know I Learned from Rock Stars. It's published by a local Chicago publisher, Eckhart's Press, and it's still available. And I talk about that on the radio because all the artists that we play, I interviewed
back when you worked
back in the 80s. Yeah. So that's pretty fun. Although I did get a message from a listener one day saying, if Bill mentions his memoir one more time, I'm going to scream. So I've had to back off that a little bit. But so when I met my friend Terry Fox on the street that day, one of the things he said is, you can come and play as much music here as you want. There's all kinds of expats. There's Thais. They're playing Western music. And the thing I do, at the top of this conversation, I'll just say I have to be careful because I'm on a retirement visa. And so I can't be perceived in any way, shape, or form as working. So you just have to be very careful that I'm in a situation that it's an open mic or a jam with other Thai people. It's very clear I'm not being paid for any kind of musical work. That said, I can find a lot of opportunities practically every night of the week to go sing a song with a band, play harmonica. On Sunday nights, there's an open mic jam at Woodstock. And so I usually get to play 30 to 60 minutes on a Sunday night there with a great guitar player, a great Thai guitar player who just kind of accompanies me, and we have a good time. So I've got a number of different things, and the most important thing is the 2 things. I'm accepted by the Thai music community here. The people recognize that, that I love music and want to contribute and want to help them learn and grow. And the other thing is, I have more. One of the things the farm took me away from was playing music. It was a lot of work, and I wasn't able to do the things that I wanted to do musically. And so here in 5-6 years, I've really noticed my harmonica playing has accelerated and become much better. My ear training has also become much better. I can pick a song. I do what I wanted to do when I was 15 years old, hear a song on the radio and figure it out on the guitar and play it and sing it. So I'm pretty happy about, all the time that I've spent listening to music, sharing music with other people here. And I hope to continue doing that. I mean, one of the things I did during COVID was I worked with my autistic student in Austin, Texas, and we wound up writing a whole bunch of songs together. He sent me 100 different lyrics to songs that he had written, and I put about 30 of them to music, and we have 2 albums of music. He picked a stage name called Joseph Moon. If anybody's interested, you can go to josephmoon.com, MOOON. So there's 3 O's in Moon, and it's josephmoon.com. The first album is there to listen to for free. And the story is there about how we got together and create together. And so that was all very interesting, too. So I hope to do something with the Joseph Moon music down the road as well.
Bill Paige over there in Thailand. And how far are you from? Are you in Bangkok, or you're in a little town outside?
So Hua Hin is about 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on traffic, depending on where you want to go, south of Bangkok. So it's basically Bangkok is like going to Milwaukee, or something like that. You can
Surf radio is out of Bangkok, or just
no. Surf radio's in Hua Hin. We've got a transmitter here, and I do the show from here. Obviously, I've got the setup, and we've got the voice tracking system that all the radio stations pretty much use now to record your bits and save them and put them up onto the computer so they air out. So I do the show kind of in advance. I usually work between 1 and 3 o'clock. Then I have lunch, and then at 4 o'clock I turn the radio on and I listen to the radio show with everybody else.
Well, Bill, when you're playing at around town, and I know you do this jam at a place called Woodstock.
Woodstock, yeah.
Clientele, are they Thai people or are they expats?
So it's a mix.
And who are the musicians that you work with? Both? Or
this town is Thailand is people don't know, Thailand's about 70 million people, so it's about 1/5 the size of the USA. It's not small. It's a big country. There's a lot of different regions. There's a lot of different populations. I'm considered in West Thailand, but I'm in the middle of that little strip that goes down from Bangkok on the Gulf of Thailand. The town is called Hua Hin, Huahin, and it is a pretty big mix of expats. There's a lot of people here who discovered this place 30, 40 years ago from Scandinavia. There's a lot of Finns. There's a lot of Swedes. There's a lot of Norwegians. And then there's a lot of Brits. There's a lot of Australians. There's more and more Russians are coming for obvious reasons. And there's not too many people from South America here. There are some South Americans. There's people from Africa here. There's people from all over the world, which is all over Europe. It's really great. It's a nice little melting pot. Sometimes it leads to communication problems because not everybody's speaking the same language. But so we've got Swedish guitar players, we've got German singers, we've got Russian harmonica players, we've got Thai people who have been to conservatory and are professional to 1,000% on their instrument, keyboard, guitar, saxophone, everything. And so it's very exciting to play with them. And again, it's elevated my game to play alongside some of these people. As good as my training and my participation at the Old Town School of Folk Music was, I will give a big shout out to that institution and the people that I learned from there, because without that experience, which lasted for me about 20 years or so, from 1990 to 2010 when I left Chicago, without that experience, I definitely would not have been able to walk in and do the things I've been able to do here.
And what do they call you, Mr. Bill? Or
Kun Bill? Kun Bill. Kun, Khun. Kun means Mr. So,
Mr. Bill.
Kun Bill. I'm Mr. Bill. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I know you have to be careful about getting paid, but can you talk politics? Because that's what I'd like to know about.
I could talk about politics, but again, it's hard to, with the recent rulings, the courts have solidified the notion without any doubt that this lèse majesté rule, which protects the monarchy in all shapes and forms, is sacrosanct, and any attempt to try to change it or modify it is going to be met with resistance and punitive action. So, and that's what brought down, we just had the election. The guy, Pitar, was handsome, young politician, but because he did some things in campaigning as part of the party, being critical of this law, suggesting that the law might need to be changed in the Constitution, he got kicked out. He can't practice politics for 10 years. His party, the Move Forward Party, got dissolved. And that's when the Phú Thai Party was then installed. They put in a caretaker prime minister for about a year, this guy named Srita. And he was a big billionaire real estate guy. He owns Sansiri, which is one of the huge construction companies. And he did a really good job. He's a very well-spoken, great English, American educated, wanted to get things done. But again, hamstrung by the restrictions of the administrations that were before him. So now he just got kicked out for some, because he nominated some guy that had been to jail. Guy did his time, but he accidentally nominated this guy for a post in his cabinet that qualified him to be removed from his prime ministership. So that's how kind of tight the courts, the constitutional courts, that's kind of a picture of the tight rein they have on everything right now. And now the new prime minister for the last month or so, her nickname is Ung Ing. She is the daughter of Thaksin Shinawatra, who was in exile for 14 years and just got back to Thailand. He got kicked out in the junta because of things he said that he shouldn't have said against the monarchy and against Les Majestes. And so now he's back. Apparently all is forgiven, but all is not forgotten, because every meeting that he has with his daughter, and his sister, the daughter's aunt, also was prime minister for a while. So we got the family affair happening, and every meeting they have together, the critical media, and there is a little bit, is all about, hey, wait a minute, let's not have this guy that, calling the shots behind the scenes. It would be great if this young woman, who's very lovely and well-spoken, British educated, she went to the University of Surrey. I think she's got a degree in economics or business or something like that. And so she's perfectly capable of being our Kamala Harris, surrounding herself by smart, good people who are progressive to a degree and want to make things happen in this country and push it forward and get to a little bit closer definition of real democracy. But right now we have to call it a democracy whip, work in progress right now.
We got a ways to go, apparently. So what are Thailand's relationships with other countries surrounding them and in the global picture? How do they fit in?
Yeah, well, again, they consider themselves pretty independent, but there is a lot of import export. Obviously, China is important to Thailand, and to a degree, Thailand is important to all the countries in ASEAN, because of various exports. A lot of fruit comes out of here, a lot of pineapple, a lot of processed pineapple, a lot of processed coconut, bananas, and a lot of rice, of course, number one. So there's a lot of trade. We've got Myanmar. That's a touchy situation on one border because the junta and the army is in control there, and human rights are taking a little bit of a hit right now. It's I have no idea how that situation is going to resolve. Obviously, it's not on the world stage like Gaza and the Ukraine, but it is a place where some bad things are happening and need to be addressed by the world community. And so I think Thailand's relationship with most of its neighbors is pretty healthy, and they try to keep it that way. Like I might have mentioned to you, they are focusing on these soft power initiatives, trying to get more tourism to come here and participate in the 5 Fs, the festivals, the food, the fashion, the film. and and fighting, the Muay Thai boxing, which is growing in popularity around the world, and it's a lot of fun to watch. I'll be honest, I love to go to the Muay Thai matches every once in a while. They have them every week here at a couple different rings.
Well, Bill, this has been great. I don't know if you can do this in about 10 seconds, but when you come back to Chicago, is there any Thai community or restaurants here that you recommend in Chicago?
Wow, there is one, and I'm not going to be able to remember the name. There are many great Thai restaurants in Chicago, but there was one guy that I met here who owns a Thai restaurant, or a couple of them in Chicago, but it's a family name and I'm blanking on the family name. My apologies.
That's okay. We'll get it next time. You have a great time. You keep making music, keep cranking out your show on Surf Radio, and thanks a lot for staying in touch. And I miss you, but I got you right here.
Miss you too, and miss a lot of things about Chicago, and I definitely value your friendship over the years. We all get to where we are with with a little help from our friends, right?
Right on. Thank you, Bill. And I want to thank both of our guests today, Alice Embree out of Austin, Texas, and Bill Paige over there in Thailand. I want to remind you all that there will be this on the 6th of September. There's going to be a concert over in Warren Park, and I recommend that you go hear Lucy Smith and her musical group. On the 8th, I will be with my photographs at a zine fest in Logan Square. And I want to thank the other people besides the two guests who make the show possible. That would be our engineer, Hal James, and our producers, Lynn Orman, Katie Hogan, and Tom Clark. You all keep doing good in the world. There's a lot of work we have to do for the next few months and on. So keep at it, everybody. See you next week. And let's just say it together. All power to the people.